Okay, so in this video, scholars are going to be talking about factors and multiples today. So what does that really mean? What are factors and multiples? And these are common things we are going to see. So let's kind of start with multiples. Both of these relate, as you can see, multiples, if you think about what that sounds like, both of these relate to multiplication, right? There's all these different symbols we can write for how we multiply symbols here, right? These all mean multiplication. I kind of prefer personally this one and this one because again we know this could be a variable later in life and that can be confusing. So let's just talk about like what are factors and multiples, and let's kind of start with multiples. Okay, so let's dive over here, and again let's just focus on multiples. Now multiples are really what we get. Well, let's just pick a number. I'm gonna pick 3. Multiples are really just what we get when we think about multiplying those out. So in the case of 3, I'm just going to list my multiples, which means I'm literally listing the answer to like 3 times 1 and then 3 times 2. It's like the skip counting, and you're going in order, right? But you don't need to put in all of this stuff, right? It is just listing the product. It's listing the answer. So if I was doing 3, the first, and in most cases we kind of do like the first 10 multiples. That's what we list. So it'd be like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and then 30, right? So that would be like the first 10. Now multiples go on forever because we would just keep multiplying one more time by 3. So 33, 36, 39, like that would go on forever. But typically when asked, and you'll have directions, it'll be like, list the first 6 multiples, or maybe you'll have multiples and there'll be like missing values to put in, whatever. But in general, kind of the rule we go by is if there's no real direction, just kind of list out the first 10 multiples. So of course we're going to practice that. So I'm going to list some more. So let's do 4, let's do 9, let's do 8. And I want you to go ahead and pause this and try out your multiples and see if you can't list them, and then unpause it, which you just did, and here I am. Hello, you just unpaused. Follow along, see what we get. So multiples of 4, right? So we're going to list out those first multiples of 4. So 4 times 1 is 4, right? 4 times 2 is 8, and 12, 16, 20, right? There I am. I'm listing out my multiples. That's all these are. We should probably have that written. Multiples. Right? So we remember multiples. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. Again, I want to do my first 10. So the last one I'm doing is 4 times 10. 32, 36, and 40. So those would be the first 10 multiples of 4. So double check how did that go. It makes sense. Really just skip counting and writing down the answers. That's really all multiples are. And they're great. I mean, don't get me wrong, you need them. So I'm not downplaying. Multiples come in super handy with a lot of the math we start doing, definitely in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. So let's go here. Here's our next one. So 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, 72, 81, and 90, right? And another cool way to think about multiples is they're a great way to help you practice your multiplication facts, right? And you can see how rapidly I can put these down because I definitely am thinking about my facts as I do it. 9 times 1, 9 times 2, 9 times 3, 9 times 4, 9 times 5, right? All right, so let's check out, what's this one? 8. So my multiples of 8. So the first one would be 8. 8 times 1, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, and 80. Right, cool. So one thing, and maybe you are already seeing this, and this will come up later. I don't want you to totally panic, but I always like throwing things out as we see them, is that some numbers share multiples, and that's actually why we look at that, right? We can list out multiples and look at numbers and see, oh, what are some multiples that they share, right? Look at this, 4 and 8 both have a multiple of 24, and this will definitely come in handy. Look at that, 40, they share 40. This will definitely come in handy later as we get into some other work, but that's why this is important, and this is why it's good that we know how to list multiples. So there's your multiples. Let's talk about the other part today, and those are factors. Wow, look at that C. Okay, there you go, factors. And factors, again, like I said, really do relate to multiplication. And it's great because factors are really just what is it that we multiply to get to a certain number. So let's just pick a number. I'm going to pick the number 12, right? And those will be the questions like, what are the factors of 12? What are the factors of 16? What are the factors of 81, right? So on and so forth. So let's look at 12. And let's just think about, well, what do we multiply to get to 12, right? What are some factors? Well, I know 3 times 4 equals 12, right? So that's one way. These now 3 and 4 become factors. How else can we get to 12? 2 times 6 equals 12. So there's some more factors, 2 and 6. 3 and 4, 2 and 6, 1 times 12. Can't forget that 1, right? That first one we ever think of, 1 times identity property, 1 times 12 is 12. So, and we also know, you know, just to not ignore or note if you're like yelling at me through the screen, like, oh, what about 3 times 4, right? Or excuse me, 4 times 3. Okay, you yelled something different there, right? We know that these digits can switch, right? Commutative property, but we don't have to write them down because really the factors are we using them? And we already have 6 here, so we don't have to write 6 first. Okay, so this is it. These are our factors. So how do we write out our answer? Right? The question would be like, oh, what are the factors of 12? Well, we like to write them out in 2 different ways, and I want to show you the most common way first. The most common way is just listing them as factor pairs. So I would just take my pairs. So here's this one, and I'd put them in parentheses and separate them with a comma. So 3 and 4, those are the factor pairs of 12. The other factor pairs, 2 and 6, right? 2 times 6. And then the third one would be 1 and 12. And again, we don't have to write, we wouldn't have to write 1 and 12 as well. Like that's not, we don't need that. We don't need to write them because they're in different orders. These are all of our factor pairs for 12. So this would be the answer, writing them as factor pairs. And you don't have to write them in any sort of order. You really don't. So don't worry, it doesn't have to be like 1 and 12 first, right? So that's how we would do that there. And we'll practice more of that. I don't want you to worry. I just want to show you the other way. We'll continue to use 12. So again, we're talking about factors. And we're talking about 12. And I'm going to list the pairs up here again real quick. So 2 and 6, what did we have? 1 and 12, and then 3 and 4. Okay. So another way that we can write this answer down, another way that we show factors is what we call a rainbow factor. And I'll show you why. It doesn't have anything to do with color, so don't worry. You have to run and get a bunch of different colors to do this. But a rainbow factor is this. We actually list out our factors in a linear way, right? Like along this line, linear. That's what I mean by linear. So they go left to right, linear. But I might get rid of that because... So I'm going to list them out linear, and I'm just going to list them out in numerical order, starting in my smallest to my largest. So the smallest factor I see up here is 1. And then I have a 2, and I have a 3, and a 4, and a 6, and a 12. Okay, so what makes this the rainbow, and I know I said don't go get colors, but I'll show you with color just because it's fun, is I connect the factors as pairs, right? 1 times 12 is 12, and my other factor would be 2 times 6. You can see I'm starting to draw these little arches, right, that kind of like show what might look like a rainbow. And that's all we mean by a rainbow factor. So this is the other way we write them out. The pairs, that's really what we do more often. Rainbow factors, sure, you can do it this way too, but pay attention to directions, right? If it wants you to write them as factor pairs, write them. If it says rainbow factors, write them as a rainbow factor. But if there's no direction, I would always just write them as pairs. I would. That's just my opinion. But hey, what do I know? Except for some math. Okay, so let's practice some more factors. Let's do that real quick. Let's take the number 20. So again, pause this, try to find the factors of 20. Come back. Here you are, you're back. Oh my gosh, nice job. You just tried to solve the factors of 20. You already have it listed. So let's see what I can do and let's compare answers. So what are we multiplying by to get to 20, right? That's the first question. What are the pairs, the 2 numbers I need to get to 20? And I want to be thinking about all the possible ways? Well, one thing I said last time, there's always the first factor pair. We don't ever want to forget that one. So 1 times 20. And again, we write that again in parentheses and separate it with a comma. So 1 and 20, let's see. My other knowledge of numbers is that this is an even number, so I can always multiply by 2. 2 times something is always that, so 2 and 10. It's another factor. 4 times 5 equals 20. Okay. And I just want to note, like, this work I'm doing here, that's what I'm doing. I'm thinking and working. It's not mandatory that you do all this to find your factors. Maybe you have some factors you already know, but I do recommend that you're listing things out. Okay, so then I always like to make sure I have them all. So I think of other numbers, right? So what haven't I used? 3. Well, can I divide that, or is 3 times a number equal to 20? Well, if I know my multiples, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. Nope, I never say 20, so that doesn't work, right? Now you can see how multiples are helping with this. 4 we used, 5, 6, 6, 12, 18, right? See, I'm thinking about the factors to see if it's, the multiples to see if it's actually a factor. 24, no, so I never said 20, so 6 is not. 7, no. 7 times 3 is 21. That's not going to work. 8 times 2 is 16. 9 times 3 is 24. So 8 doesn't work. 9 doesn't work either. So good. There are my factors. I'm done. 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5, right? So this is that factor work. So let's just do one last little piece. Let's talk about multiples and factors together. So multiples and factors. So the first thing I'd like you to do is go ahead and list the first 10 multiples of 6. Okay, so that's your first job. And then when you're done with that, I would like you to take the number 24. Ooh, no, the way I write that's confusing. Okay, so we're gonna do multiples of 6, and then with 24, I'd like you to list the factors. Okay, so there's 2 assignments there. So pause that and first try to find the multiples of 6, and then list out the factors of 24. Okay, so let's do that. Multiples of 6. So I'm just listing out, skip counting by 6. I'm gonna do the first 10, right? That's kind of the rule we want to think about. So 6, 12, 18, 24. Ooh, 24. Notice that. I wonder if that means this will come in handy as a factor later. Sorry, what? 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, 54, and 60. So those would be my multiples of 6. Now let's think about what numbers we can multiply together to get to 24, right? So one factor pair I know right away. The one factor pair I know right away, 1 and 24. I also know this is an even number, so 2 times 12. Let's see, what else gets us there? I had said 6 is a factor, right? Because 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So 6 times 4. That's where multiples are really helpful. Let's see. So I can think about other numbers. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. So 3 times 8. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. That doesn't work. There's 6. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 3 is 21. So 7's not a factor. 9. So I'm good. And one thing to, keep in mind is notice how I was practicing that. I was just kind of thinking out loud, what are some things? So there are my factor pairs. So these are multiples and factors. Take this to practice. It's really important. They're going to come in super handy with so many skills down the road, especially when we get into fractions. It's actually really important to know our multiples and factors because it makes life a lot easier for us. So keep up the good work. Try out some quizzes and practices with this. Ask questions. Keep working hard. I can't thank you enough for everything you do, and we will see you so soon.